Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast it's the darkest timeline. So this week we're talking about getting ill. Climbing, climbing's still around. Talking to the doctors. Computer games, movies, TV shows, got all the entertainment this week. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Share the podcast around, people. That's the big one. Share the podcast around. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, the darkest timeline. Hello. How you doing? You alright? Are you well? Are you feeling good? Good. As always, I will just presume you said yes, and we can move on. It's one of those unfortunate things with a one-way conversation. A lot of assumption, presumption. One of those things. So, starting this week's podcast with a callback. Who remembers last week where I'm like, oh, I'm really ill and I got ill and I was burning the candle at both ends and that's why I got ill and so on and so forth. I think there's even a point in that podcast where I was like, oh, I'm starting to feel rough, sort of thing. So, me, being the sensible soul that I am, knew exactly why I'd got ill. I was like, I know why I'm ill. I've been burning the candle at both ends. That needs to change. I need to do something different, etc., etc. So obviously, me, did exactly the same as I had been doing. And my body was like, oh, you didn't listen to what you were being told, so let's make you ill again. And literally from the point in time where I was recording that podcast to the next couple of days, I was ill again. Like, yeah, this was absolutely going to happen. What that meant was very little for me changing doing things. So it was like Wednesday morning. So that was Monday where I was like, oh, I'm getting ill again. Wednesday morning. I still get up nice and early to go off climbing. I get to climb. I'm like, I'm fine. I feel fine. I feel able. So it'll be okay. So I go off to climbing. I get there. I was like, right, I need to warm up. So I go to warm up and yeah, it's bad news. And it was this weird thing because as far as the illness was concerned, it was just like, I just feel, I was still dealing with a cough. Outside of that, it was just pretty much non-existent. Or so I thought. So I'm like, well, my body doesn't hurt, my body doesn't ache. And other than this, outside of this cough, everything's fine. I go in, get sorted, get changed, all of that. Climb up a wall, and then I'm like, why is this so difficult? Do the first one, do the second one, do the third one. By the end of the third one, I am pouring sweat. Now, bearing in mind at this point in time of recording-ish, big temperature change. So, whereas one day last week it was 12 degrees, the next day it was 4 degrees. That is not a joke. The 12 degrees, then it was 4 degrees. The day after it was 0. So, big change in temperature resulting in me having done 3 climbs, and I am pouring sweat. Noticing that I'm getting up to like the top of the walls and being like, I don't feel super stable up here. So Ed's like, how are you finding it? I'm like, I am struggling. And he was like, yeah, when you find you have trouble breathing, when you're struggling to breathe, that's what's going to happen. And I was like, yeah, but I didn't think I was struggling to breathe. So I carried on, just sweating, to the point that I thought I was going to have to go and get the towel out of my bag. That's how bad the sweating was. And every single climb I'm going up, I'm getting to the top, I am out of breath. Whole thing was a bad situation. So, the other thing was, you know when you have that thing when you're like, you're ill, and being ill makes everything 10 times worse. So because of that, I end up in this situation where I'm like, climb's awful, climb is terrible, climb is rubbish, I can't do any of this stuff, I don't know why I'm bothering, I don't know why I'm here, etc. And not long before the end, me and Ed were talking about like some things to try, some new routes to try, some new colours to try, etc. And that's basically at the end. Fast forward 24 hours, I end up in another situation where I'm like, well, I can actually go and climb. Only realising really towards actually getting to climb in the morning that I might be there on my own. And as it was, as I actually walked into the place, completely me on my own, and there was nobody else there. I was like, well, this is going to be interesting. People started filtering in very shortly after that, but to start with, I was the only person there. So, I'm like, right, this is an opportunity for me to see what I'm able to do / achieve, whatever, on my own. Now, this is only a day later, and I've got new stuff to try. So I'm like, this is actually quite an interesting experiment, and it's a good point in time to really sort of see what's happening. As possibly may be expected, absolute disaster. And this was the sort of thought process that I came to. Thought process was this. I was like, there's always been a couple of possibilities with this. One, I reached a point in time where I realised that this is just not something that's for me. You know, I've tried and tried. And ultimately, what I've ended up with is a situation where I can say, this just isn't for me. I can't do it. I'm too big. I'm not agile enough. I'm not, I don't want to say able-bodied, because I'm not like the guy I saw that time climbing with one leg. I'm just not, I'm not rail thin and super strong. It's that combination. And, you see people there and you look at people and you're like, good on you. Not only are you not what you would think as standard climber, you are also very good for what you're achieving. So I'm not saying, you have to fit into a certain box, but let's face it, if you look up a video of somebody climbing, a lot of climbing people look very similar to each other in the body. Very strong, quite muscular, quite well built, thin, because that's what you need. You need to be light and strong. I am neither. So it's very much there is ultimately a future, a possibility whether I reach a roadblock, That roadblock is potentially I'm just too big and not strong enough. So I reached this point where I was like, is it now? Is it now? Now, bear in mind, I will, going back, I will say this. Obviously, I was ill, so everything's 10 times worse. Is it now? Is it now the time? Because I stood there and I looked around and I was like, look, here's this guy standing in the middle of this place, looking around at all the things that he can't do. This is not a man who's looking around saying, oh, I can do that, and oh, I can do that, and that's one that I've nearly completed, and oh, there's one there that I was one hold away. That was not the case. The case was I was a man who was standing there going, there's 5 climbs here I can do, 2 I can attempt, and the rest is just not for me. However, I taught somebody who was like, oh, I did 20 climbs today. So, big difference. And this was where things kind of ended for me. And I was a bit like, this could be it. Now then, one of those things, I feel like I'm kind of doing you dirty on this one, because we're going to come back and talk about this in a bit. Because, as is often the case, I like to keep things in the order that they go on the list. Now, ultimately, yes, there is something else on the list to talk about in the same subject, but I am going to just keep moving with the order of things. So, next thing on the list. One of those things, part of me is not entirely sure what to say about this. So, I'm going to try to work through it the best I can. I had a phone call the other day. Phone call was from the doctors. Now, to explain this, we have to jump back 2 months. 2 months ago, I put in a request with the doctors. I was like, I need to speak to a doctor, have a conversation with a doctor, just go through an issue that I'm having with my weight. Now, we can slice it any way we want to, but realistically, I personally think that there is something to be said for somebody who eats chopped vegetables, salad, mixed nuts, has one cheat meal a week, etc., etc., exercises like an absolute lunatic a lot of the time, but can't break through the stone barrier. Now, as I've said previously, as I've said more recently, yes, there are things that could go from my diet. All those coffees that I drink, probably not that great, hidden calories, etc., etc. I have those little bar things that are low in calories. Well, it's great they're low in calories, but if you eat 2 of them, then you're doubling the calories, that kind of thing. So I'm fully aware that there's probably a couple of things maybe in my diet that could go. However, on the flip side of things, running, working out, rock climbing, it's not rock climbing, it's bouldering, dog walking, walking to school and back, etc., etc., doing 20,000 steps a day minimum, and so on and so forth, there's some sort of disconnect. And there are times when it is very depressing for me to step on the scales on a Monday morning and to have not lost a pound. To keep bumping up against the same barrier and not being able to break through, and not having any understanding to what that is, and getting to the point of saying there's something wrong here. I need to speak to somebody about this, and I just need somebody to say, you're doing it all wrong. You're doing it all wrong. That's why it's not working for you, because you're doing it all wrong. And I can go, oh my God, I was doing it all wrong all along. There we go. So I put in a request to speak to a doctor. I think I've already mentioned the request came back saying, we'll look at it in 4 to 6 weeks. And then we'll decide whether you need to see or speak to a doctor. And I was like, well, I hope I don't die of a heart attack in that time. So, fast forward to, it was 6 weeks. I got a message from the doctor saying that they were going to look at my request, and I could expect to hear from somebody in the next couple of weeks. So, short version is 2 months after I put the request in with the doctor, I get a phone call. How's this for irony? When the doctor rang me, I was running. And I went, I'll just let that go to voicemail. And I was like, hang on a minute. It's taken 2 months to get something from a doctor, and I can't get in touch with the doctor, so I should probably answer the phone. Which I did. It took 3 phone calls to have a conversation with the doctor, because at various points the doctor couldn't hear me, and I was a bit like, yeah, that's because I'm, out running. Didn't stop running, carried on. Just talking to the doctor on the phone whilst I was running. So, I wanted to have a conversation with somebody. I wanted to say, look, this is this and this is that and this is it. And they were like, so what's the issue? You've got a problem with your weight? I was like, yeah, I've got a problem with my weight. I can't lose any. Okay, what are you doing? I was like, well, I've got quite a restrictive diet. So, because I've got this restrictive diet, I would expect to lose weight. They were like, give us an idea, give us a clue. I was like, well, there's a lot of chopped veg, there's a lot of salads involved, mixed nuts. Those are like my staples. I was like, maybe I'll have a cracker. So they were like, all right, okay, so if you've got this restrictive diet and you're not losing weight, then what we need to do is put you on some medication. And if the medication doesn't work, then we'll refer you to the hospital for surgery. How does that sound? And I was like, what? Like, that was fast. Now, spoilers, just in case you're wondering, just in case you're thinking there's something, 2 things that I do not want in my life: medication and surgery. Now, from a medication perspective, I'll tell you what it was. They were like, we'll put you on a fat blocker, stops the body absorbing fat. You instead pass the fat, if you get what I'm meaning. And ultimately, presumably, the surgery referenced would be like the band. I'm like, that was so fast. And obviously, if I was looking for either of those things, win-win. As previously mentioned, I am looking for neither of those things. I just wanted a conversation. I just wanted to say to somebody, look, this is what I eat on a daily basis. This is how much exercise I do. Looking at those 2 components, do you, as a medical professional, as a trained medical professional, think that I should lose weight week in, week out? And as a medically trained professional, that person could have then said, you are doing it wrong. You are eating the wrong stuff, doing the wrong exercises. The 2 put together make it all wrong. You need to change absolutely everything you're doing, and you need to do it this way. And I would have said, that sounds great. I'll do that. To me, that's a 10 or 15 minute conversation which completely changes everything that I'm doing, puts me on the right path, and sends me off down the road on my merry way. So the doctor is like, is that okay then? I was like, it's like, look, the reason for this is, I've got this restrictive diet and I exercise a lot. So I kind of feel like those two things together mean that I shouldn't really have any issue losing weight. I should be able to lose weight. That's kind of where I'm at. The doctor was like, oh, right, okay. And then basically went through what the medication will do, what the fat blocker will do. Went through the side effects, all of which sounded horrendous. And if I didn't want the medication to start with, I certainly didn't want the medication after that. If you want to, do feel free to look up one of or any of the side effects for the fat blockers. Let's just say this. It's probably a good idea to not stray too far from the toilet. I'm like, okay. And the doctor's literally like, so is that okay then? We'll put you on the medication, and if either you don't get on with it or you don't like it or it doesn't work, then we'll just refer you for surgery. And I was like, I can't quite believe that this is happening. This is hands down one of the most baffling situations to me. I knew full well that that part of the conversation I was having with the doctor, I think the doctor was basically reading a script. And ultimately, I realised that this wasn't going to go anywhere. So I was like, now here's something I need to mention as an aside. I listened to a podcast about a week ago where one of the sort of like the sciencey, healthy kind of people was talking, and they were saying, ultimately, nobody can break the laws of thermodynamics. You put food in, and if you burn more than what's going in, you will lose weight. You are not special. You can't break the laws of thermodynamics. So it's a simple equation. And I heard that and went, well, then clearly I am doing something wrong. I subsequently went and looked at a different diet to see how feasible a different diet is. And I kind of moved on with my life, completely forgetting about the fact that I'd put this referral through to the doctor. So that's a side thing. So back to the conversation. So the doctor's literally just like, so is that okay then? I can get you the medication today if you want. I'll put the medication referral through straight away, and we'll get you on that today. Realising that there was no way around this, no way out of this, I was just like, okay, cool, that sounds fine. Yeah, that's great. Let's do that then. Because at least it's something, isn't it? Conversation was over. Hung up the phone. I think within 15 minutes I got a text message from the chemist saying, medication's ready to collect. I was like, that's real interesting, because when I order my asthma inhalers, those things that keep me alive, it takes the best part of 2 days for you to let me know that they're ready. But the fat pills, yeah, get them in 15 minutes if you like. I was just like, this has got to be one of the most baffling situations I think I've ever been a part of. I relayed this story to a couple of other people, and they were like, that's mental. I was like, it absolutely is. Like, so what? That's just the go-to now. Oh, I've got a problem with my weight. Well, we best get you on some medication and then cut you open. Just like ultimately, A, I'd have been fine with a conversation with somebody, and B, I basically got my answer from a podcast that I listened to for free. So why? And let's not forget the 8-week wait to get to speak to somebody. The entire system is completely broken. Honestly, I would hate to be in a scenario, to be in a situation where I actually need to see or speak to a doctor. It's terrifying. It's honestly terrifying to me that this is the state of things. It's utter insanity. So that was that. Saturday went out for a run. Now, do you remember that I inadvertently started a running club? Yeah, a running club kind of generally works on the principle that it has participants. And in the space of a week, I lost all of my running buddies. I don't think it's me, though. I definitely think it's me. So, there we go. However, I'd mapped out, scheduled in for us to do our first group 5K. And I was like, we're going to go do a 5K. I've got a nice little route. It shouldn't be too much more than what we've done already. We're going to get a 5K ticked off. Job done. Everybody bailed on me. So I was like, well, I kind of budgeted to do a 5K, so I guess that's what I'm doing. So I went, I parked the car, I jumped out of the car, and off for my 5K. I went on my merry little way, and I went and I did 5K. And I was still dealing with illness, sickness, whatever you want to call it. But the plan was to take the 5K super steady. Slow, some would say. I budgeted plenty of time to do it. And as it was, that's what I did. I took it nice and slow, not too strenuous on the old body, the body that was supposedly in recovery. And that was that. Had enough time to go and get a coffee, which you guys know me. I love a coffee. Nipped over the road, got a coffee, went back, waited for climbing to open, went into climbing. I'm like, okay, let's see what's possible. And I felt different, whether it was running, whether it was psychologically. I don't know what it was, but I felt strong and light, which might seem strange. Some of you might understand what I mean by that. Like one day you just feel that bit more able, that bit more capable. And the two things that I needed for my climbing session was to be stronger and lighter. And I felt strong and lighter. So I was like, well, let's see what's possible. Tried a couple of things. Was like, I am getting nowhere with my stronger and lighter self. But then I went and tried something that I've been looking at for a couple of weeks now. It's a big, long climb. It's quite, for me personally, it's quite difficult. And I've been breaking it into sections. So what I've been doing is I've been starting, getting as far as I can, stopping, but then starting again from the same place rather than going back to the beginning. Do another section, stop, do another section. Have not been able to complete it previously. It goes quite high. It's got some like leaning back stuff and some overhang, underhang, all this sort of stuff. But it's just a nice little test. So I did the first section. I was like, okay, that's fine. That's about what we'd expect. Did the second section, and I had to do this crazy maneuver where I was holding a hold one way and then I had to hold it the complete opposite way, which I managed to do whilst being suspended almost upside down. I'm like, that's interesting. So that was like the second section. And for the third section, it was going up and back on itself and there was twisting involved. And I was like, I don't know what's possible and what's not here, but we're about to find out. And I got nearly to the top and was like, I'm scared. And I had to come down. And I was at this point, I'm on my own. And I'm like, what is happening here? I feel able. I feel capable. I feel like I can do stuff that I couldn't previously. This is weird. So I'm wandering around like, oh, I'll try this and I'll try that and I'll try the other. And I can do this a bit more than I've ever done before. And I can manage to get further on this than I've ever done before. And I can do this. I couldn't do this before. And things like this. And I was like, this is weird, but cool and fun and exciting. So because of the way it was all set up, I was kind of on my own a lot of the time, which I was kind of enjoying. I walked past a climb that I'd previously looked at on one of the weekdays. One that I can't do. I've never been able to do it since it was put in. Very much one that I just don't bother with. I was like, I can't do you, so I'm not going to bother with you. And it's as simple as that. That's how I operate with it. That's how it works. Job done. So I was like, well, is that the right attitude for this? Is that the way I should be looking at it? Is that the way I should be doing it? Let's give it a go. I was like, when I tried it the other day, I had to do like the shimmy thing, shimmy up a volume. So I was like, okay, I need to remember that. So I tried it and I shimmied up the volume and I got my foot into a position and my other foot was in a position and I went, oh, Shazbat. I am now in a position where I'm kind of stuck. And it's not the kind of stuck you might expect. It was the kind of stuck where getting down was going to be harder than going up. And I went, oh no. The only solution for me here is to carry on going up. Now I know the principle of climbing is to, go up. So I'm like, oh, this is weird. I'm stuck, but I can go up, so I'm going to have to go up. So I started going up. And it was one hold and another hold and another leg and another foot. And before long, I was holding the top hold and was like, what the shit's happening right now? What is happening here? This is mental. I've just done this climb that I never thought I'd be able to do. I've never been able to do. I never got anywhere close to even getting past the start of. And I've just completed it. And I came down off the wall and I saw Ed and he was like, how are you getting on? I was like, that climb over there, I've just finished it. He was like, oh, you're done with it. You're not doing it anymore. I was like, no, I've done it. I've climbed it. I've finished it. He was like, okay. So again, I went off and I was trying all these different things. And then Ed comes and is like, let's look at something else. He's like, we've got this climb here, it's this blue that we were looking at the other day, and because you've managed to achieve that and do that, maybe now's the time to look at this and see what you can actually do. I was like, you might be right. Maybe today is the day. So I tried it and I went up and I got stuck. And I was like, I really didn't know what was happening because I got further than I had previously and then got stuck because I didn't know where to go. So it's like, well, you've got to match your feet there, match your hands there, put another hand there. That's not 3 hands, it's 2 different moves. And then go up. And I was like, do you know something? That was the only thing I could think when I was doing it, that's what I should have done. But because I didn't know for sure, I didn't try it. And he was like, yeah, that's what you should have done. He's like, give it another go. So I was like, okay, I will. So I went up this And there was a point where I was like, okay, so I need to do this now. And he's like, yeah. And I did it. And he's like, right, now do the next one. Go to the next one. I was like, okay. And I did it. He's like, right, now go for the next one. I was like, okay. And I did it. He's like, you've got one hold left. And I was like, and I can't reach. He's like, you just have to reach for it. I was like, I can't. Ended up having to come down. Did not complete it, but was one hold away. Obviously, everybody was super impressed. No, I was impressed. Ed was impressed. That's all that really mattered. So, I often talk about, like when I talk to other people, I often talk about climbing like it's golf. And I know that seems strange, but I've explained this before. When I used to play a lot of golf was very much one of those things that you'd go and have a round of golf and it would be hands down the worst round of golf you've ever played. You're going to throw your clubs in the lake. You're going to drive your trolley out into the road and let it get run over. You're going to tip all your balls in the bin and you're going to go home and never speak of golf again. And then, you know, when you turn up the next day for another round, you will have the best round of golf in your life. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the game of golf. It is literally that. One time you're going to go out and have the worst round you've ever played, and the next time you're going to go out and have the best round you've ever played, and that's why people play golf. And any time you've ever heard a joke about golf, it's because of that principle alone. And the principle is, 1 minute you hate it and the next minute you love it, and both of those things keep you coming back. For me, climbing's the same. There are days I go there and I hate myself more than I've ever hated myself. I am a loser. I am a failure. I am a terrible person. What have I done wrong in my life to bring me to this point where I have the true clarity, realization that I am truly just garbage? And then you could literally go 24 hours later and be like, I can't believe all the things I've achieved today. I am maybe getting it. I might be good at this. I'm not good, but I'm not terrible. It's literally that. It's mental. So that was Saturday. Saturday afternoon. The Joys of Joys children's party. Now then, for anybody that doesn't know, children's parties go in ages, and I don't mean, you know, the children's parties are for a particular age of child. I mean, there's the parties you have to stay at. Your child is too young to be supervised by other parents. You have to stay. Mostly those are truly painful experiences. You're trapped. You can guarantee that the person that sort of arranged the party has decided that a 4 hours party is best, and there's no adult beverages. And I don't mean alcoholic drinks. I mean, like, there's no coffee for whatever reason. And it's a truly painfully excruciating time. Then there's the mid-ground, where some parties you're actively encouraged to leave your children and go off and do something for you. And the next one you go to is literally, oh, we'd prefer it if you stayed, because a lot of children here, and, you know, if one of them gets hurt, it's like, great. And then there's like that, you know, in between. And then there's the parties, like, if I took my eldest to a party, I'd be a cookie-shaped blur by the time I'd dropped her off. So, middle daughter going to a party, i.e., you can stay if you want or you can go if you want. Now then, I was in a situation where, because of where it was, I was like, well, I can go and do a couple of shopping jobs. They're actual jobs that need doing. It's not an excuse to leave the child. They were actual shopping jobs that needed to be done. So I said, I dropped her off and I was like, look, I've got a job to go and do. It won't take me long. I'm not just leaving it, but I've got a job to go and do. They were like, take as long as you like. Just be back for, pick up. I was like, well, I'll just be like 15, 20 minutes or something. As it was, 15 to 20 minutes was a wild exaggeration, and it turned out more like an hour. And the pie was only an hour and a half. And we got there a little bit after it started, so basically I had to do 20, 25 minutes of this pie. I often feel sorry for the people that work these events. It takes a special kind of person to be able to deal with that level of child intensity. And I don't feel that people that do it have that calling. The calling they have is bills to pay. So you get a variety of different people. You get the people who are very good at basically hiding their disdain for the job. You get the people in the middle who are very much like, I'll do the job because I'm getting paid to do it, and I'll pretend to be happy and jolly about it, but man, I hate every single one of you people here right now. And then every now and then, I don't know, 1 in 10, 1 in 20 parties you go to, you get the people who truly hate their jobs and make absolutely zero attempt to hide it. And those, dear listener, those are absolute gems as spectators, because it's a car crash smashed into a train crash, all rolled into a nice bundle of spectator. So I rock up and basically they're having like little snacks, sweet treats, not food, just little sweet treats in a particular room. And every time one of the working people comes out, it's like they're coming out like, kill me now. And every time they go back in, they're like, you children are making far too much noise with all the sugar in your system at a party. Can you please shut up? And I'm like, oh, we got a live one here. Oh, this is going to be fun. You filled all those children, 25 kids, with a bucket of sugar. And you want them to be quiet. And to add a cherry on top, you filled the room with balloons. You lot are absolute sadists. What ensued from this point on was basically the people that worked there telling these children to literally shut up, to be quiet, which I was just like, you're mental. And, we're going to go back in the room and play some games. What they meant was, we're going to go back in the room and play games, but you're not allowed to play the game the way you want to. You have to play the game super serious. So like hide and seek, but you can't hide over there and you can't look for people in that way. It was like, this is amazing. I had my hand over my mouth for 20 minutes solid, crying, laughing, just hoping that nobody noticed the gibbering wreck over at the corner who was I was crying, laughing. These people hated their jobs. They were taking it out of these kids, and wow, such a joy to watch, such a joy to behold. What an absolute train wreck. It was one of those that it finished at 4:30, and at 4:30 on the nose, it was basically get the F out. And honestly, this is the best one. 25 kids full of sugar. I think those children did amazing. Because they were like, okay, we'll be quiet and stand in a line. Please don't beat us. Oh, it was just amazing. Took the children to do the yearly let's go and stare at toys in a toy shop, because that time of year's coming. Oh wow, yeah. You always have to be aware that your children are watching and they're listening and they're learning all the time. And I had to ask myself this last weekend, am I a good parent or a bad parent when the number one toy at the top of one of my daughter's Christmas lists is a toy coffee maker? Part of me is proud and part of me is ashamed. Simultaneously, both of those things at this point in time. I was just like, oh, wow, that's probably quite telling. I'm taking all the girls around the toy shop and I'm like, what about this? Is this any good? Tell me if it is. Nah. Okay, moving on. What about this? Is this any good? Not really. Cool, let's move on. And I'm just like the blood pressure, I guess, is just going up and up and up. And I'm like, Christmas is going to be an absolute train wreck if these kids don't find something that they actually want for Christmas. Because what am I supposed to say? Father Christmas doesn't love you anymore? So we go around. My youngest daughter's like, hey, I want to get this. Like, put it on your Christmas list. Hey, I want to get this. Put it on your Christmas list. Can I get this? Put it on your Christmas list. My middle daughter, she's like, look at this massive robot dinosaur. I'm like, what? She's like, look at it. It's awesome. Like, yeah. Okay. My eldest, in true fashion, is like, I'm like, is this any good? Nah. What about this? Is this any good? It's okay. But you don't want it? Nah. What about this? Is this any good? Meh. Seen bigger ones. I'm just like, this is it. This is where I end up having to say, look, you're not getting anything for Christmas. I've made an executive decision and you don't need anything for Christmas, so you're not getting anything for Christmas. How about that? And just at the point, just at the tipping point where I'm like, let's get the F out of here, because I can't believe that a load of kids can't find toys in a toy shop. And I'm like, what has the world come to? And all of a sudden, my eldest daughter explodes with joy and excitement around this thing that apparently she'd seen the day before and went mental for. And she is just like, look at this, look at this, look at this one. This one's amazing. That one's not very good. This is amazing though. What is this? I'm like, oh, thank all that is whatever. I'm just like, oh, thank. Yeah. So it's an eye-opening experience where I'm like, I have to remind myself that one child doesn't, we're not there for one of the children because they want a coffee maker for Christmas. And one of the children's like, hey, I want to get this. I'm like, cool. She's like, yeah, I want to get it now. I'm like, add it to your Christmas list. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. What about this? Can I get this now? Put it on your freaking Christmas list. So I'm like, okay, you're fine. And then I'm like, well, maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's like a transitional phase where, you know, that age where they're too old for a toy. So being in a toy shop is probably not the right place, but too young for, you know, like the sort of things that teenagers get, like, you know, oh, I want a new phone, I guess. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be terrible. And then, yeah, we turned a corner and she just went crazy. So, you know, swings and roundabouts. It's Monday today. So having gone back to what I was saying earlier about like the doctors and stuff and all these issues that I am having, I'm trying to lose weight. This is the first week in what's now 5 weeks where I've put weight on. Yay! Anyone want to guess why? Yeah, that's right, because if I lost weight, I'd have broken through that barrier that I can't break through. And I'd have rejoiced. And today was definitely the day I was like, I feel thin, I feel light, I feel like today's going to be a good day on the scales. And the scales were like, nah, mate, you've put on 0.4 of a pound because you just can't do it. And I went, fine. There we go. That's the answer. Put weight on because we can't break through that barrier. Anyway, let's talk about some entertainment stuff. A couple of TV episodes so far. Scott Pilgrim, whatever the Scott Pilgrim cartoon is called. I watched the second episode. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, so I won't, but I'll say this. I honestly thought that they were just redoing the movie as a cartoon. And the first episode was very much in that vein, right up until the very end of the first episode. And I was like, what? I watched the second episode, expecting at some point for them to be like, we're only joking, we're still doing the movie. But no, it's very different. Very different. Not necessarily in a bad way, but it's... And I don't want to be like, oh, it's too different. It's just, it was very much the same and now it's not. And I'm like, what are we doing here? So it's kind of that. But the animation's good and it's fun. The fact that they've got all of the voice cast back, to a degree some might say, is cool. It's just a bit weird. And I watched the first episode of series 2 of Invincible, which was a long episode. It was the best part of an hour. Honestly, I'm gonna reserve my judgment on this one. I'm not going to give you it was good or bad or whatever. I watched the first series of Invincible a lot. I'm pretty sure I've seen it all the way through 3 times, if not 3.5-ish times. I watched the special episode that they released, which was cool and groovy and fine. I enjoyed that very much. Let me just say this. You know, when a program has a first series that's just an absolute juggernaut, and then they get greenlit for a second series and they kind of do that, we were never really sure if we were going to get a second series, so now we need to do a second series, and there's been a lot of hooing and hawing about the fact that it's taken so long to get a second series. Sometimes your second series is a little disjointed. And obviously, with the way the first series ends, that's going to be a natural thing. It's going to be quite disjointed. I'll reserve my judgment. I'll watch another one and we can talk more about it then. I watched a movie, which was a new movie, so we can talk about it. I watched The Killer on Netflix. I'd heard things about it. I want to say I'd heard good things, but I just heard little bits here and there. Leanne's mum said she'd watched it and she'd enjoyed it. I'd heard some stuff on the internet saying it was very good. I was like, yeah, I'll give it a whirl. Kind of what I watched it wrong. I watched the first 20 minutes of it and then had to stop watching it and go to do other stuff. And then I came back to it like a day later and I basically watched the rest of it. The Killer is a film that's kind of like a guide. It's like, here's what you need to be able to do to be a hired assassin. But I feel like it's been done like a deterrent. Like suddenly the government has realised that there's a real uptake in people becoming contract killers and they want to put people off the idea. So they want to make it seem as boring as possible. Because that's how it comes across. The film is, these are the things that you need to be able to do to be a contract killer, a hired assassin, a blah, 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 blah. But the whole point of it is that it's really slow, it's really long, and it's really boring. And they did that bit real well. Something I've got to say early on is, I really didn't like the soundtrack. There's a particular band that I just don't... They're just not for me. I'm not saying that they're a bad band. I know that people absolutely adore them. I have done for many, 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 many years. They are just not for me. The problem with this is that the film rams this band down your throat. It's aggressive. One of the things is that the main character, this is presumably their favourite band, and they listen to this band all the time. Oh my word, did it start to grate on me. And it wasn't like they were just playing the same song over and over. No, they were playing different songs. But oh my word, the soundtrack grated on me. The biggest issue I had with the film was that the film tells you got to be slow and methodical and careful with this and careful with that and careful with the other, and you can't rush things. You've got to take your time and you've got to be careful. And the entire film is based on somebody rushing. Somebody rushed a decision. That was the catalyst for the entire film. And knowing that from the start, I went, this film is wrong. Because you've told us from the start that this shouldn't happen. And obviously, mistakes happen. But that's the point. The whole point of the first part of the film is that mistakes aren't supposed to happen. And I do understand that's the point to the film. But it just felt like none of this should be happening. Because the mistake shouldn't have happened. Outside of that, there was a couple of things towards the back end. I don't want to spoil anything. There was a couple of things towards the back end where I was like there was a particular actor that's in the film, in the credits, that this actor's coming. They turn up and it is literally just a section of this actor being in the film acting. And that's that. And I was like, I feel that was in some ways gratuitous because it was literally just, we've got this actor and they're gonna act. Right? Okay, could you not have got anybody to do that job? Also, I felt the end was wrong. I'll just say that. I'll just leave that there. Spoilers and all. And the other thing I want to say is, I know every single thing I've said up to this point in time makes you think he didn't like this movie. I actually did. I enjoyed it. It was an enjoyable film. There was just a lot to pick out of it that was wrong for me. And I think, you ever have that thing where you're watching something and your mind is rewriting it as you go? Like, yeah, but I understand you've done it that way, but if you'd have done it this way, it would have been better. It kind of felt like that at times. There was points of time where I was like, yeah, but if you'd have done that, you could have just done it this way. Got the exact same result, but been better off. From like a narrative standpoint. There was just stuff where I was like, but ultimately we have to go back to the beginning where all of this is off the back of a mistake that could have been avoided. That was the thing that got me the entire time. One spoiler that I will give you is ultimately don't become a contract killer. Don't. It's boring, apparently. Let's talk about computer games. Obviously, VR is the big thing in my life at the moment. It's not the only thing, but it's quite a big thing. I played and finished Stride Fates. Something that annoyed me about this game is something that you might not realise would annoy me. That game got loads better towards the end. The last few levels were really good. There was a point where I was playing, I was like, this is what I wanted from this game. There's a level where you go into a building and basically get ambushed by loads and loads of bad guys. It's a multi-tiered level. It's got oodles of different ways of traversing. It was perfection. I was just like, this is what I've been wanting all the way through this game. Then you get towards the back end. The back end was very reminiscent of another game. There's a game, I've talked about it before, it's called Robo Recall. The bad guy in Stride Fates, I'm like, is this bad guy a carbon copy of the bad guy from Robo Recall? It was very close, very similar. Very like, what are we doing here again? This seems weird. Played it, finished it, very much enjoyed it towards the end. I kind of wish the rest of the game had been more like the end. I feel like they'd really dialed it in, made it super tight towards the end, and I was just like, why couldn't you have done this more in the rest? It was just giving me everything I wanted. Picked up a couple of games in the Black Friday / Cyber Monday sale. First one of those was Iron Man VR. One of those that I've often toyed with the idea of the Iron Man VR game. Originally not possible because it was only available on the PSVR. So that was kind of that. It eventually moved over to the Quest. It was a little bit cheaper than it had been originally, and then it went into the sale, 40% off, chicken dinners all round. I bought it, I am currently playing it, haven't finished it yet. Upside, simple, you get to play as Iron Man. Very much, in some way, not in a bad way, but in some ways, almost too much, you get to fly around like Iron Man, in the sense that you have to tilt your hands to make yourself either go forwards or straight up or backwards. And it is literally just a tiny little tilt or degree will make those differences. You can shoot with one hand and fly with the other hand. You can go forwards and backwards, side to side. And that's great. It's very intuitive. It feels very natural. You really do feel like, hey, I could be in the suit flying around. All those are in the plus column. The reviews for this game are very much nailed on, as in a lot of the enemies, i.e. all of the enemies, are basically the same, just different. They're all drones, and it's just different variations of drones. Some of them you have to kill in particular ways, and others you just shoot them. Says that. I've already been to the same location twice already. Things like that. In fact, I've been to 2 of the same locations twice already. So there's that side of things, a little bit of recycling going on. You're a bit like, yeah, couldn't have made another area. And ultimately, it's very much a game that wants you to be invested in the story, whilst not realising that you've probably worked out who the bad guy is right at the start of the game. So that's kind of hard to look past. It's very weird. It's very much like it tells you who the bad guy's going to be, but thinks you haven't noticed. One of those. It's a bit like, yeah. The other game I picked up for cheapsies is Golf Plus, which is an official PGA golf game. I'm sure any of you who's listened to this for more than 5 minutes will know that I enjoy a little bit of golf here and there. I enjoy a golf game. I enjoy playing golf, etc., etc. Don't get to do it as much nowadays. So having a VR version, kind of handy. I've heard a lot about this game in the sense that people and golfers ultimately say that it does feel as close to playing around the golf as possible. Again, that's a double-edged sword. Now, I've selected a difficulty where I think a lot of the stuff is done for you. Putting is certainly helped along, and I would say driving and hitting has some assistance. Certainly distance and where the ball goes. However, I entered a tournament. I was like, oh, this looks fun. I'll go into a tournament. And what's interesting about the tournament is obviously it takes all of the aid away. I holed out on every single hole I played and ultimately ended up quitting the tournament. What I was saying to a friend of mine today is what I'd like is something in between. I want to feel a little bit more like I'm playing myself and I need to use my quote-unquote skills to play the game. And I want to feel a little bit less like the game's doing it for me. So I probably need to go back and look at how to tweak the settings a little. I only started playing that last night, so I can't really give too much of an update on that one, but hopefully we'll be able to update more as time goes on. And finally, actual computer games. I've just been playing Assassin's Creed Mirage. Honestly, I will say this. The more I play it, the more I enjoy it. The more I play it the way it's supposed to be played, the more I enjoy it. Something I realised today is I couldn't tell you a single thing about the storyline. I couldn't tell you a single character in it. I can barely tell you what the main character's name is. That side of things is just, I just don't care. No part of me can find any ounce of care for the story. I don't know if that's a me thing or if that's a game thing, but that's where we are. That's where we are, I'm afraid. I just don't care. Gameplay-wise, every time I play it, I get into it a bit more. And every time I play it, I use the tools that it gives you more and more. I do feel like I should have maybe done this from the start, ironically. I know. But that's kind of where I am with this. I'm like, oh man, I wish I'd have been doing this earlier. But part of me also kind of wishes the game had pushed me down that route, I guess. So, it's not a blame culture, but, you know, as somebody once said, it's this is surely your fault, because otherwise it would be my fault, and that can't be a thing. So, yeah, very much I do kind of wish I'd been playing it differently earlier on, knowing that I'm probably unlikely to play it again from the point I finish it. It's very much probably going to be one of those that it might even end up on the old trade-in lineup. So we might have to see on that one. That is the podcast for this week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And I will catch you next time. So there we go. What do you think's that? Another one done. Another one gone. Another week gone. All that stuff. Big thank you for watching. Big thank you for listening. Big thank you for being here. If I can ask you to do a few things before you go, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Check out the website. It's thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Cookie Cast.